was always she who looked away.
Perhaps she couldn't bear the look in your eyes.
Was I jealous? Of course not. She was paralyzed below the waist. There was no question of any physical intimacy.
Me too.
All right. I was irritated. Maybe it was that irritation that produced the novel. What went on between them? Even if it was just words, what words? I tried various experiments. If I turned the key noisily enough in the front door and then entered, sure enough, I would find him at his desk, studious, a picture of concentration. And she would be deep into her book at her laptop, but never so absorbed that she couldn't give me that warm, winsome smile. If I surprised them by entering silently, animated conversation would suddenly come to a stop, a guilty pause. Then she picks up the exact note effortlessly and continues, involving me too in their talk. It was always her. He was never good at subterfuge.
But what did they talk about? After all, 6 years, surely they couldn't be declaring love all the time?
One day I came home early. A furious battle was raging. I eavesdropped. They were squabbling like a married couple. It was about ethics. He was arguing that any system of ethics demanded a single universal principle applicable to all, a command that bound every human being together without exception. She was horrified by this. Different human situations call upon different principles on which to act. She said, ethical demands are ethical because they are conflicting. She found a universal principle inhuman. They were shouting on top of their voices. He said Hinduism knew no real ethics. She called Immanuel Kant a fascist. But it was all so impersonal, abstruse, innocuous that I stepped in. They saw me. A sudden look of guilty horror on their faces, as though I'd caught them making love. Silence. Then she picks up again, asks my opinion. What did I think? I couldn't repeat the experiment too often, of course. They knew my timings. There were occasions when I felt, this isn't my home. I'm an intruder here, someone external to the soul of this house, like the cook, the maid, and the nurse.
Did Pramod come to your bed willingly?
Almost too willingly. After all, he was not but the film must be halfway by now. I was told advertisers were queuing up. We can't stay locked in here forever.
You were talking about your bed.
There were moments when I wondered whether he was fantasizing having Malini instead of me in bed with him.
And she, no doubt, lay listening beyond earshot, imagining the two of you in bed together.
It was painful. There was no end in sight, no resolution. Critics have commented on the sensually charged atmosphere of the novel.
You found the perfect objective correlative for it.
It sold the book.
But you have to keep denying that the plot was from life. By the way, did Malini know you were writing a book on her?
How could she? I hadn't even thought of it when she was alive. Have a heart. I was a working woman. English literature. At home, there was Malini, completely dependent, and a typically Indian husband, caring but useless. Where was the time? Besides, you need distance, emotion recollected, etc., etc.
Once you found tranquility, you must have written at a tremendous pace.
It poured out. It was one way of making up for her absence.
She died. Within a couple of weeks, you sent the typescript to your literary agent. 350 printed pages worth of material in 2 weeks?
I worked my fingers to the bone.
A gigantic task, worthy of the Guinness Book of World Records. Do you know the publishers of the Guinness Book of Records say they received the largest number of applications from India? We are a nation that aspires to be the world record holder in world record holding.
What are you burbling? Are you being willfully obtuse or plain nasty and stupid? All those jibes, hints, innuendos.
At 150,000 words in 2 weeks, 10,000 words a day, it wasn't inspiration. It was a cataract of words, not a deluge not matched since Noah's Ark.
All right. I didn't write the novel. She did. She wrote it. Every single word of it.
Oh, God.
Once her health began to collapse, about 18 months before the end, she began hammering away at her laptop. I knew she was writing something, but I had no time for it. After her death, I found the typescript in her drawer.
It was brilliant. A masterpiece. You knew that as a writer you could never dream of achieving such heights. The passion, the clarity, the insights, the total control. It was a work of genius.
Bilkul. I looked up a directory of literary agents in the British Council and mailed the typescript to them. I didn't even know if they would respond. Then it happened.
About stealing the book?
I did not steal the book. See, Malini liked to sign herself M. Sharma. My letter accompanying the novel was signed Manjula Sharma. The agent obviously thought we were the same person. His reply arrived at Pramod's email address. We shared a computer, you see. Pramod printed off a copy of the reply and left it for me at the kitchen table. As I read the email, I could sense him watching me from his corner. I decided to face him. How can you accuse me of plagiarism, I wanted to ask. Are you suggesting I knowingly stole my sister's novel? कि मैंने जानबूझ के चुराया है? I knew he would deny any such insinuation, but I was waiting to plunge into him, to wring the truth out of him. I said, why don't you say what's on your mind? You know, it was a genuine mistake. The agent is an Englishman, unfamiliar with Indian names. Instead, I heard myself asking, why did you leave the message at the kitchen table? He looked nonplussed, and it wasn't what I meant to ask, but I had to plunge on. You know, I have a study of my own, a desk at which I work. Oh, I'm sorry, he said. Picked up the message from the kitchen table, went into the study and slammed it on the desk. Here it is, the message. That was it. He pretended he didn't know what I was getting at. But he did know. I could sense it in his anger. I had never before seen him so angry. Not with me. The subject was never...
Then what happened?
Mentioned again. What happened after that? What happened after that? We lived entombed in silence. The last real communication between us, the last moment of privacy, was when he had asked whether we can re-employ the nurse. I had replied with a flippant why. And as we looked at each other, for a moment only, the room had suddenly filled with the reek of her incontinence. Her perfumes, medicines, sweat, her phlegm, and her incontinence. And this was weeks after she had died. Before long, the press got wind of the deal and invaded her. The enormous advance, the rave reviews, the fabulous advance, it was all
Just let's go back a
too
bit.
late.
The
Too
plot
late.
is a little too neat, don't you agree? All that spiel about the literary agent confusing Malini for Manjula. Such melodrama. Sounds like one of your Hindi short stories.
After her death, I looked for her papers in her drawer. I couldn't find them. I dashed to Pramod's office, riffled through his papers. There it was, the typescript. Not even a floppy that you might miss or not recognize. She had printed off the entire novel and arranged the pages carefully. It lay there hidden in his drawer, or so he thought. He was never good at concealment. He didn't even know I'd finished the typescript until the email arrived from the agent. I read the typescript.
You were decimated. It was brilliant. A masterpiece.
It was venomous. I was camouflaged as the first cousin, not sister. But it was me all right. And the portrayal was rancorous. I was a shallow person, a pretentious mediocrity, a gushy, conniving, devious relative who had taken her in for her inheritance. But there were no adjectives, only facts. The events were from life. They were accurately described. The conversations were recorded verbatim. I could not...
Perhaps that's why Pramod had hidden the script.
No, perhaps they'd shared it together, laughed and exchanged notes. Perhaps I was not simple at all. She had brought out an aspect of him I had never suspected. She could not possibly have imagined her work would see the light of day. So either it was meant to be read by me or to be shared between them. She despised me. Perhaps they both did. Perhaps she had turned him against me. In that moment I knew. I hated the cripple. I always hated her. I was just waiting for her to die.
And she had recognized the truth all along.
But she was right. Once again, for 6 years from her wheelchair, my sister had watched me, stalked me in every move, and then pinned me down in coruscating prose. From beyond the funeral pyre, my sister was challenging me to burn the script. If I succumbed, I would stand condemned in my own eyes for destroying a masterpiece.
And if you published it, everyone would know who the first cousin was. You'd become a laughing stock. Worse still, you would go down in history as an insignificant little thing in the life of a famous author, dangling by an insignificant asterisk. Malini had nicely crucified you.
I had to do something she could not possibly have imagined. I had to solve all problems in one go. I had to survive. And this time, I had an advantage. She was dead, and I was not. I published the novel in my name. I won!
Wait a minute. Perhaps she did win in the end.
How do you mean?
If she wanted to prove to you that you were a fraud, she certainly succeeded. Malini Sharma, the English novelist. Manjula Sharma, my sister, the Hindi short story writer, was decimated the moment she read my novel. She thus obliterated all differences of ink and blood and language between us, and in one fell stroke morphed into me. Of course, I shall continue with the name of Manjula Sharma. However, I am, in truth, Malini Sharma, my genius of a sister who loved my husband and knew Hindi and wrote in English.